Enter the ASUS Scar 18, a brand new laptop design never seen before from ASUS. Prepare yourself though, because it's a balls to the wall laptop that probably most of you at home won't be buying. We'll see how it tears through performance tests, which we'll get to later, but coming in at $4,800, it better. The Scar 18 is also incredibly thick, at 1.2 inches or 31 millimeters, and with a weight of 3.1 kilograms or 7 pounds, combined with its 18-inch size, this thing is an absolute unit. It will be difficult to lug around. Its design stands out as much as its sheer size does, with extremely gamer aesthetics with streaks, accents, and lines all over. In addition, its infused semi-transparent plastic at the top of the keyboard area gives it a quite nice pleasing aesthetic, with the translucent design also extending to the sides of the laptop, as well as the back vent area. This is further elevated with a plethora of cool RGB lights, such as the diffused lights at the front, the RGB LED strip at the back vent, and of course its full RGB keyboard, but also the RGB lights they put on the ROG logo on the display lid, which can be of course customized. All around, it's a striking and flashing design that will certainly blow some people away with its aesthetics. One last thing about the design, although you cannot see it most of the time, the bottom of the laptop is full of streaks, edgy text, and plenty of vents, although a couple of them are fake. Although given the specs of the machine, as we'll see later, I was really hoping that the entire bottom would be a vent. Taking a closer look at the ports, starting with the right side, you get two USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A ports, and flipping around to the other side is where most of the magic happens, with a single 2.5 gigabit per second LAN port, a HDMI 2.1 port, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C port, a Thunderbolt 4 port, and finally a headphone microphone combo jack. Now both the keyboard and trackpad are very similar to the Scar 17 we looked at. ASUS took the old if it ain't broke don't fix it approach, which works well here. Although I did have the same problems with the Scar 17, where I would stumble on a few of the keys due to them being a bit larger than usual. For the most part though, it was fine, with decent travel and multimedia keys to boot. The trackpad is pretty much the same in that it's fine, and is large enough for most people, including me. The two clickers are decently clicky, and palm rejection is great here too. The display on the other hand is great, but not the absolute best. It's an ROG Nebula display, but isn't mini LED, but rather standard IPS panel, with rather lackluster for the price Quad HD resolution. What it does make up for though, is the 240Hz refresh rate, and 100% DCI EP3 coverage, as well as a 16:10 aspect ratio. This means you can game and create with its ultra smooth refresh rate and great color accuracy. The aspect ratio here would certainly help with content creation as well. I always commend laptops that go the extra mile for more vertical space, which helps a lot more than you think in many apps like Premiere Pro. Again, sadly much like the Scar 17, the webcam and microphone are extremely lackluster. With only a 720p webcam, the Scar 18's webcam is nothing short of disappointing, considering once again the price of this machine at $4,800. It has absolutely no detail, resemblance of color or depth of field, and the microphone here is average as well. Now the speakers I would say sound better than the speakers on the MSI GT77HX we took a look at. They are particularly equal with bass and midtones, which aid in making it a clear sound stage. Here, take a listen. Moving along to the power and thermals of this machine, the 13980HX in this laptop, while gaming in Spider-Man Remastered, reaches upwards of 139 watts, drawing significantly more than the Scar 17 and MSI GT77HX. And in Cinebench, well, it jumps to around 175 watts peak power draw, interestingly, which is 5 watts fewer than the GT77HX, which had a 13950HX. This could be an indicator of a less effective cooling system, hampering the more powerful chip in the Scar 18. Do remember though that the 13980HX is only a slightly overclocked version of the 13950HX. And as we'll see later, this doesn't really impact it all that much, if at all. Despite the possible analogy of it being hampered by its cooling system, the Scar 18 and the GT77HX reach similar max temps, with the Scar 18 only being a few degrees higher than the GT77HX in gaming. And in Cinebench, they're identical. Crawling back to gaming in Spider-Man, it also appears that the Scar 18 reaches lower temps again by a few degrees than the Scar 17. But harkening back to Cinebench reveals that the 13980HX in this machine does get hotter by a single degree. In the Scar 17's favor though, thanks to the nature of Ryzen 7000's boosting algorithm, the 7945HX in this laptop enjoys better sustained multi-threading performance, despite high temperatures, as we'll see later. Next up is probably one of the most important factors when considering a new laptop, and that's the battery life. Although, make of this what you will. Despite having a large battery of 90 watt hours, the Scar 18 has the worst battery life out of all the laptops we tested, ignoring the Triton 500 SE, only lasting 3.35 hours while idle and a bit over 2.5 hours while playing back video. It's also important to consider all the usual stuff, in that this was measured with the lowest brightness and with all lights and RGB turned off, and power modes where possible set to power saving. I know, it is getting a bit old to say this in every laptop review we do now, but you should always remember that this does not consider real world usage. A revision to how we handle testing is coming, however stay tuned for that. The included charger you get here is a monster, providing 330 watts. Disappointingly though, it's not a Gantt charger. You know, that's another thing I feel like we say in every video. ASUS, include a Gantt charger next time. Just before we head into the benchmarks of this machine, I just thought I'll touch on the specs of this machine. Of course, as you know, it has Intel's top of the range mobile chip, the i9-13980HX, packing up to 24 cores, with 8 of those being performance cores and 16 of those being efficient cores, for a total of 32 threads. And for our memory configuration, ASUS opted for 64GB of DDR5 memory running at 4800 mega transfers in dual channel, which is thankfully upgradable because it's pretty disappointing to see base memory speeds on a top of the line CPU costing $4,800. I mean, I guess you could say you get a megahertz per dollar, I guess. The GPU is of course the 4090 Mobile, running at the highest NVIDIA allows at 175 watts, also known as the 4080 desktop in disguise. And lastly, for our storage configuration, is two 2TB PCIe 4.0 SSDs in RAID 0, which will be interesting to pit against the MSI GT77HX, as that also had a similar configuration for storage. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's head straight into the benchmarks to see how this thing performs. And more of the CPU intensive benchmarks, we see the 13980HX in the Scar 18 edge out the 13950HX in the MSI GT77HX in pretty much every scenario. But on the other hand, due to AMD's advantage in the boosting algorithm, the 7945HX in the Scar 17 is able to edge out the 13980HX pretty much all the time and sustain workloads like Blender and Cinema. Interestingly though, this all is turned upside down, literally, as the 13950HX is able to claw back some of the lost score as it ends up compiling faster than the others, which could be once again a more effective cooling system in the MSI GT77HX that is allowing it to boost for longer, which isn't indicative of what we saw in the power and thermals, although it was slightly cooler than the Scar 18 in gaming. I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. In more creative apps like the Adobe Suite and Office benchmarks, the Scar 18 shows a strong competition against the other two, providing the best performance for productivity applications. The GPU also shows a strong advantage, beating every laptop we tested, including the Scar 17 and the GT77HX, showing its raw grunt in graphics. Interestingly though, as we turn to the 3DMark storage benchmark, testing our RAID 0 configuration in the Scar 18 reveals a disappointing score, scoring significantly less than the GT77HX, and even the Scar 17, which took me by surprise given the configuration. Now it will come at no surprise that the Scar 18 delivers a far more than adequate gaming experience, providing balls to the wall performance. I tested the games at the highest settings they could go, at the native resolution of the screen, 2560 by 1600. Esports games like CSGO and Rainbow Six Siege were no stretch for this thing, delivering 200 FPS and beyond. And the rest, which were all much more intensive titles, delivered way above 144 FPS. We even enabled full path tracing in Cyberpunk, and it still managed to deliver a 60 FPS gaming experience. Crazy stuff. This can also be attributed to the use of DLSS 3 in the intensive titles, which helped it to boost frame rates, but again, no surprise to anyone. This is some stellar gaming performance that won't disappoint, and there really weren't any issues here in terms of performance. Wrapping up our review of the ASUS Scar 18, this laptop undeniably stands as an unapologetic titan in the gaming laptop segment. Its striking and unique design, coupled with extensive RGB customization, easily catches the eye. When it comes to sheer performance, the Scar 18 doesn't disappoint, with its formidable gaming abilities bolstered by top-tier specs. Its display shines through with the high refresh rate and commendable color accuracy, while the comprehensive port selection ensures you're ready for any task. However, every machine has its drawbacks. For the Scar 18, the subpar webcam and microphone quality are hard to overlook, especially given its hefty price tag. Speaking of heft, the laptop's significant weight and girth do raise concerns about its portability. The disappointing battery life is another point of contention, even when pitted against its competitors. Surprisingly, for such a premium device, its base memory speed seems misaligned with its gaming status. And while its gaming performance is outstanding, the storage benchmarks were less impressive than anticipated. In summary, the ASUS Scar 18 offers a dreamlike experience for those chasing maximum performance prowess. But these pros come paired with some notable cons. If raw performance coupled with bold design is what you're after, and you can manage its bulk, the Scar 18 stands out. However, for those seeking a more all-rounded device, the journey might continue. Anyways guys, that's all for today. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Also make sure to check out the Scar 17 review we did. We'll have that up on the screen right now.